Hey everyone, welcome to the Podcast. I'm Nicole Harvick. I am your host. And as always, we have a super fantastic guest to introduce you to, and today's no exception. He is the founder of Spark a Change Coaching. He helps driven people build success without burning out. And I have to admit, I've talked to a lot of people lately, and we all seem to be just hitting the wall a little bit. So I'm going to bring on Anthony Spark and let him tell us how we can avoid burnout. So, Anthony, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks so much for having me, Nicole.
Yeah, and I'm really curious because we talked a few minutes before we got started, and I'm in active burnout right now.
Yeah.
And so, what gets us there? What kind of transpires leading up to that? And how do we remedy that?
Yeah. So I think there's a few things at play. First off, we're trying to succeed. We're trying to build something. We're trying to make a difference. We're trying to make money. We're starting things, especially a podcast is an entrepreneurial direction. So I think there's a few things that end up at play. First off, is there's a big difference between the anxiety of growth and the anxiety of misalignment. And a lot of times people have a hard time understanding which place that they're in. So one of the things that I work with through my clients and, my business coaching and personal coaching, and, I actually have 5 different companies. Spark of Change is the one that we're talking about today. But first off, there is no doubt that we need to work hard and we need to increase our capacity. So, and we have kids, we have businesses, we have side gigs, different things. You're going to feel uncomfortable as you're doing more and taking on more responsibility because the systems in your life are going to start to strain and eventually break. And those systems need to be replaced to go to the next level. But there's a difference between revving your engine at 5,000 RPMs where it's uncomfortable and 7,000 RPMs where you're going to create permanent damage. And a lot of times people have a struggle to know what that looks like. So the real goal is that we need to get up to that 5, 6,000, that space of growth. You're working out and it's one more rep and that one rep makes a difference, but not so hard that you hurt yourself and you're trying to do weight where it's going to hurt you. Same thing psychologically, emotionally, entrepreneurially. But what happens, I think the other part that people miss is so first we get up to that work and it's like, I really can't do anymore. Okay. So we've now grown our capacity. We're doing more. Now, the next thing that we need to do is now we work on efficiency. How do we get done what's taking 60 hours in 55, in 50,
Mm.
in 45, and 40? And a lot of people, they never go down. They never switch gears because first we need to audit our time. I mean, Dan Martell is a great guy to talk about it. Buy your time back. You do an audit of what you're doing. You need to offload the things that aren't creating revenue, systems, AI tools, VAs, virtual assistants, support. Maybe it's, taking your laundry to the laundromat and spending the $50 because you can make $100 by taking those 3 hours. It's being creative to where can we offload? And then we replace that time with things that create more revenue. And it needs to fit 2 criteria. It has to create money and we have to love doing it. If you love doing it, doesn't create money, great hobby. If it makes money, you don't love doing it, you're not going to be able to do that forever and you're not going to be able to do it excellently. So now we take it down, we offload those different things, we get efficient, and now we got 2 choices. Do we live at a really comfortable level where we were accomplishing what we're doing? Or do we re-up and now we take that 10, 15, 20 hours and now we get back up to 4 or 5,000 RPMs, systems start to break, we start to have to, and then we go back through, how do I become more efficient? Because there is a way. I mean, I have 4 kids. I got 8-year-old twins. I got a daughter that'll be 4. I have a daughter that'll be 6 months. I've been married. I've been with my wife now for 18 years. You always have to ask the wife, but I think we have a great marriage as far as I know. I mean, check with my wife. I think she'll vouch. You know, I
Congratulations.
Thank you. I have 5 companies that I'm running. So it requires a lot of intentionality to be present with your kids, to have a good relationship, to take care of yourself and your physical health and your mental health, and to be able to be productive. That's where coaching a lot of the time comes in. And someone that you get coaches you that has the value system that you espouse, because you need to have somebody that's going to live the life. If you talk to somebody that is a workaholic and they're on their third wife, just know if they coach you that you're going to replicate a lot of the things in their life. And that's okay. I'm not here to judge. And that might be your direction. You want to make $1 billion. You don't care about that stuff. That's great. But if you're going to have someone coach you, guide you, and give you direction, got to make sure that the life that they're living lines up with your values. That's a little bit of an idea on burnout.
I love that. I love that. I love your analogy of the RPMs too.
Yeah.
That's very clever. But you said
Yeah.
one thing that really hit hard is you need to love what you're doing. And
Yes.
as I reflect back, I've had a lot of jobs where I've made a lot of money, but I
Yep.
hated it. I hated
Totally.
it. So how do you find that balance in terms of maybe what you're doing isn't quite the money maker? How do you, is
Yeah.
there a way to alter that or make that more robust?
Yeah, there's a few options and it's different for everybody. And that's where a lot of times getting some coaching makes a difference. So first off, we do have a fiscal responsibility, right? I came from no money. My dad was in prison. I was working 60 hours a week by the time I was graduating high school, 40 hours at 15. So I
Wow.
get it. We all don't have the luxury of just doing what you love. And I'm with you. There's some fiscal limitations, right? But we don't need to stay there. That's the thing I think that people miss. So if you're doing something right now, there's somebody hypothetically, you're making a buck 50, $200,000, you're doing well financially, but you know you don't want to do it forever. You don't like the work environment. It's not the spot that you think you see yourself. Okay, we have a few options. First of all, seasons in life change too. Like you might love something and then eventually it changes. You're under no obligation to be the person you were yesterday. There's seasons. A lot of relationships, a lot of roles have seasons in our life and they serve us in that season. But when that season passes, sometimes it does require us to start to reorient. But you're in that spot, making a lot of money. First off, we're going to talk about how can we shift our focus? How can we shift our orientation and our attitude towards it? And is there a way to do the same thing in a different way? One of the things I talk about a lot is you can do something and have fun, and you can do the same thing and be miserable and too serious. It's the same thing. Doing it fun, it's going to give you energy and make it a lot more enjoyable. Doing it serious and putting undue stress and making everything like it's the end of the world and being a professional, uptight, very often is going to drain you. It's not even the task. It's just your orientation towards it. So that's the first thing that we would work through. Let's say that it's a toxic work environment. You got a boss that's an asshole. You hate the people you're working with. And it's not even, again, it's not objective. It's not working for you. The person you don't like that's the boss might be the best boss for someone else, but maybe it's just not the right place for you. It's no judgment on the other person. Now we need to say, okay, what am I going to do? And it might be a long term. It might be 3-5 years. It might take some time. You could make a hard shift. Are you willing to take a downgrade in your salary? Do you have the financial and fiscal choice to take a downgrade to be able to now optimize for life enjoyment? Great. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. Maybe we need to start fixing your finances and put yourself in a strong enough financial position to do that in 2 or 3 years. Maybe you're going to start developing a skill or learning AI. Or my main first company was network marketing, which super unpopular. A lot of people hate it, but that's been a base of a big 6-figure income for me for 6 years. It's, allows me to do everything else in my life. So maybe you're going to go some direct. There's a lot of options, but we do need to be proactive and we need to not play the victim. If you don't like your situation, start doing the work to change it. Learn the skills, get out there, have the different failures, try, figure out what it looks like, and start getting out. And even if you just start making steps towards the direction you want to go, you're going to feel better, even if it doesn't, that first thing or the second thing or the third thing doesn't pan out. At least you're trying. And it's going to make being in the place you are feel a lot less restrictive, which will help you in and of itself.
I love that. I love that. Now, one question I have is you talk about employers. Are there different rules for people who are self-employed? Because
Mhm.
sometimes that's really hard.
It
When
is.
you don't have a boss on you, you're like, I can take this afternoon off. So
Right.
how do you cross that bridge?
Yeah. So a lot of times, if you're new in either entrepreneurship or being kind of a solopreneur, or it's disorienting. A lot of people think that, if I could get out of this finance job, you're making 300 grand, you hate it, you're commuting to the city, whatever, I'm from New York, whatever it is. You think that leaving it's going to be 100% net positive. It's Pollyanna thinking. It's what everybody tends to do. Going from structure to no structure is disorienting, even if you hate the structure that you're in. When you go from prison to being free, you miss prison a little bit, even though it was horrible and you didn't like it. Because anytime you take structure away psychologically, it's disorienting. Pure freedom with no structure is one of the most oppressive tyrants in the world. So what we need to look at is we need to both play the role of worker and boss. We need to dictate to ourselves the structure of our schedule. What are our KPIs? What are the things that we're going to do? And then that's a separate role. We're the same person in two roles, wearing two hats. Here's me doing, here's me managing. And I need to assess myself. Sometimes, and again, a coach coming in next to you can make a big difference. Now, typically, most people that are entrepreneurial end up being the people that need to be slowed down. They burn their life up. They lose their marriage, they lose their kids, they lose their health because they're just so driven and they're just in this grind mentality, which I'm not saying you don't have to work hard, but that's the extreme that wrecks your life and feeds your soul into the furnace of your production. And I'm not looking to lose my life and my health and happiness at the altar of money. That's
Right.
silly. But a lot of times people do that. But you do have people that need a kick in the ass, that need to kind of get on top of things. But most often the financial reality usually kicks you in the ass enough that most people that are going to be entrepreneurial are going to do something bad, or they're going to go back to a job. Jobs aren't bad. Entrepreneurship isn't bad. It's just everything in life has a list of pros and cons, and you need to stop pretending like there's only a list of pros and disregarding the reality of the cons. Jobs have pros and cons. Being in business for yourself has pros and cons. Doing a podcast has pros and cons. Being a parent has pros and cons. We just got to have the self-awareness and the honesty to stop having this fantasy thinking that all of a sudden you're just going to fall into a pile of money and love every element of your business. No business. You're going to love every element of your business. There's a lot of things about network marketing I just don't like. I really like the big six-figure income, but there's elements of it I don't like. But I mean, even if I was a rock and roll star, you're not going to like everything about it. Try taking pictures of people for 3 hours. It's hard. No, you're not going to like doing that. So we just got to be honest about it. But if you're having a hard time, understanding psychologically that you need to give yourself structure or have someone give structure to you.
I love that. And I talked with a lady yesterday on a podcast, and we talked about coaches and mentors and how so often you work with that one person that became extremely successful with that one mindset. And I've had a lot of people that say, you got to do it my way or you're going to fail. Now, you seem very broad-minded in terms of looking right, looking left, up and down. So how do you find a good coach like you other than right here, right now on this podcast?
Right. Well, first off, there's a few things in looking for a coach that I think are really important. First off, the obvious one is, have they created success for themselves in the area they're coaching you? That's a pretty basic benchmark, right? The second one is the one that people miss, which I mentioned earlier. What are their values and how do they live their life? So if you value family, you value marriage, you want to be a mom or a dad, and you want to be present for your kids, you can't talk to a person that is a do it my way driven, that's on 2 marriages. I mean, it's just, I'm not judging them. And a lot of times when I say things like this, people are like, oh, you're judging me because I got divorced. No, not slightly. I just think that it is honest that we are going to replicate the things that have happened in our life. That's the reality of it. Now, I really think the most important thing, coaching for me. Oh, look, I got a little thumbs up. Coaching for me, you have counseling and you have coaching. And in the Venn diagram, there's some overlap. Counseling is past oriented, dealing with trauma, mainly in emotions and orientation to world, with a little bit of proactive coaching, looking forward. Coaching is forward thinking, with it's actionable, it's dealing with reality, it's creating a result with a little bit of counseling, which is a little bit of kind of what the counseling would be, but it's mainly forward focused. But the thing that is important is the person thinking in terms of what you want? So what I want might not be what Nicole wants, and that doesn't make someone objectively right. So if you really want to find a good coach like you asked, you need to find someone that has both the emotional and intellectual ability to ask and think from your perspective, not from theirs. Now, some people do want an authoritarian leader. Obviously, you can tell that ain't me. I don't want it, and I'm not that. But some people, they want psychologically the certainty of someone saying, do this, do this, do this, because it fits their need of not feeling this unbelievably dizzying disorientation and existential crisis of freedom. I think leaning into it and learning how to be able to deal with the disorientation of being actually having the free will to choose what you do is the direction I want to go. But that's a harder path than just having someone say, do this, do this, do this, do this. You got to choose for yourself what that's going to look like. I'm looking to step into someone's life, help them create the life that they want, because that doesn't mean their syntax of values is the same as mine. Their spiritual beliefs, their ethical beliefs, their desires and goals could be very different than mine. It's not my job to tell you what I think. It's my job to help you find out what you want and think and give my experience and my principles for you to accomplish that for yourself.
Yeah, I agree with you so much. And you brought up a word that I'm very familiar with because I work with it a lot, is trauma. People have a lot
Yeah,
of trauma from
they do.
conditioning, from their parents, from ancestral, you name it, they've got
Yep.
it. And I know it well because it has stopped me in my tracks at
Yeah.
times. So when you work with the client, are you comfortable bringing up their trauma so they can get rid of it and move forward?
Yeah. So I'm there's a lot of things that can be handled by a generalist, right? But there are very often times where you need someone that's a specialist, right? So I've done counseling. I've had counselors for decades. I almost got divorced. We've built a great marriage. I come from a lot of dysfunction, that I'm very proud and thankful that I've really done a lot of hard personal internal work, relational work, and a lot of those things. So I can help at a surface level, but I'm not a licensed clinical social worker. I don't have any type of official. So I'm a lifelong learner. I've read thousands of books. I've spent six figures in personal development. I've built several companies that do millions of dollars. I got a great life. So I could do it from I'm totally comfortable, but I'm not going to ever try to get into a lane where I'm not fully properly able to help. I can help identify it. I can give the surface level. And if it's not something that's really deep and requiring someone that is a specialist, like a proper counselor, we can work through it. But I can get it identified. We can talk about it and know it's part of the plan. But I'm going to bring somebody in and have you see somebody because there are things that are going to be outside of the range of what I can do. You want me to, like my buddy Aaron, you want to build a company that does $1.5 million in a year and a half because you got a good skill and you got no business. You want to make a few $100,000. I got you. You want to deal with some of the patterns that are playing out in your life from your family of origin and the trauma. You want some basic coaching. You want some good coaching rather that's got some basic REBT in it, rational emotive behavioral therapy. I got you. You want to talk about Jungian psychology and your shadow and how it's interplaying. I got you. But if we're going to deal with, I was raped and it's really wrecking my relationships. I have a history of mental illness that is not really where it needs to be. I have been abused to a level where that needs remediation and that needs a specialist. And I think it's important that we're honest about that and that isn't shamed.
Yeah. I have to tell you, you're probably one of the most common sense coaches I've ever talked to in my life.
Oh, well,
And
thank you.
it's really refreshing because there's so many little things that are out there because we've been
Yeah,
conditioned from the time we were kids,
that's it.
raising our hand to go to the bathroom, for goodness
Yep.
sakes. So I love hearing that you can pivot. I love that. And with
Yeah.
that, I'm going to ask, I want to know about you because I read your bio, which is fascinating, and what
Yeah.
you're telling me is fascinating. But you said you raise money, millions for children.
hmm
Tell
So
me about that.
I'll give you a quick part of my story and we'll put the pieces in. So my family was super
Okay, we're doing
dysfunctional.
a puzzle, aren't
We'll
we?
do it. Let's do it. I'll be 38 May 31st. I grew up
Ah,
in
you're a baby.
yeah, you're 39. So, but me and you,
Yes.
regardless of the age difference, we grew up in a much more similar world than people that are 5 or 10 years my junior. No social media, no gig economy, no cryptocurrency, no video calls. It was a different world. So, graduating high school, I knew I wanted to make a lot of money. I was poor. I was working, helping my mom. My mom, I'm the eldest of three. She was a single mom. My dad was in prison. I knew I wanted to do something to help people. I was going to go to med school. That's where I found network marketing. Friend of mine told me he met a guy that said he was going to retire at 28. Never heard of that before. That's the direction I went. He was very successful in it. A lot of people say, network marketing is a pyramid scam, doesn't work. And I said, I'm gonna try. I got nothing to lose. I'm gonna try. So that was what allowed me to leave my full-time job at 25. I started dating my wife at about 20. She chased me for years and eventually wore me down. We got married. She's not here to defend herself. My wife was able to leave.
She's a lucky woman.
I'm the lucky one. She would very clearly give you a different story, but she's not
Okay.
here. So anyway, 25, I left
Yeah,
my
it's
job.
your world right now.
That's it. She's not here. She's not getting on podcast. She doesn't do front facing stuff. So I get to control the narrative. But she retired. Her mom retired at 65. She retired 6 months later from her regular job from our network marketing income right after her 30th birthday. Our twins were about one at that time. We got 4 kids. So in that process, we built a big network marketing company. We're in the top 0.04% of the company that we work with. That's our base. Love it. Been great to us. We helped to co-found a charity, Operation Impact. I'm no longer on the board with that. I've started some other things, but that charity has raised millions of dollars for kids initiatives, gifts and Christmas, backpacks, all different things, and utilizing our network marketing team. People have raised that money together, leadership, all that stuff. I helped to start that. I helped to plant a church. A friend of mine wanted to start a church. And he was just an amazing person. That was also part of how the Operation Impact thing came into play. But Mike Signorelli of V1 Church, it's one of the biggest churches in the Northeast, extremely successful. He's become so successful, he doesn't even draw a salary from the church. And, he was at the White House the other day. But that started in my living room, So that was that. I started a punk rock run for mental health, which is a local run to help raise awareness and money for kids that need support on the North Shore of Long Island. So that's that. And then after I retired, COVID happened. We really reoriented that I'm going to put our family first because I was driven and, we were just running and gunning and making money. And I said, you know what? We make enough money. I'm happy to make more, but I'm not going to do what I used to do. We're going to be more efficient, like I talked about. We're going to build systems. We've built some really interesting AI tools and some different CRMs. We've systematized things, which has taken 20, 30 hours a week off my Amway business. That goes to my family, to my health. And then I started 4 other companies. I started Spark a Change Coaching, which has grown exponentially. I only have room for, I don't even know, maybe 10 or 15 or so more clients. My goal with that, I'm going to serve my small group of clients. And then we're going to help everybody succeed together. Maybe a few filter out, filter in, but the rates go up and I just help people make a lot of money. And it's like a lifelong partnership. We grow together and you pay me more, I make you more money and we just keep winning together. Founder's Right Hand is a VA placement company. I started with my personal assistant, sourcing girls from the Philippines. Extremely effective because you still need human beings in a lot of things. And then lastly, Atlas Minds. We have some really, really cool intelligence architecture that runs between, because you have Claude, you have ChatGPT, but the actual implementation into a business, people are missing it. The generalist tool is really valuable, but how your personal company needs to interact with it and get the proper data and the administration. So our goal is to help to increase sales teams 10 to 20%, from their existing sales team. We have some really cool tools with that. But anyway, that's my quick bio.
Wow. And you're an author as well.
Yeah, I wrote a book.
You're an author. Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So Mike Signorelli, I was sitting down with him probably 2017, and he had found this company that would take at that time sermons and turn them into a book. It's called Speak It to Book or something. Speak It to, I forget exactly. That company changed, but I said, all right. And I said, I want to write a book when I'm more successful. And he's like, well, why would you only write one book? Like, what if you write a book and it helps you become more successful? And I'm a little bit perfectionistic. So I found this company. I said, okay, it was a Friday. I had done a lot of personal development. I speak for a living. So I jotted down on a notepad 13 basic chapter titles from a basic personal development book for what I would think. And from that point, I gave myself 24 hours and I recorded 5.5 hours of audio in a 24-hour period off the top of my head. And a lot of it, because they were going to take the audio and write it. It was like, oh, there's that example of the girl that was in gymnastics that broke her leg, that finished, grab that example, put it in here, that kind of stuff. But in between my meetings, I lost my voice. I was like, did all my meetings, 5.5 hours. I got the audio and I had called the guy and I had said to him, I said, hey man, they're like, it's like $20,000 or $30,000, which I did not have at that time. We interview you. And I'm like, well, what if I just do it myself and I just get you the audio files? He's like, oh yeah, that would be we could just do it for $6,000 and whatever. And I'm like, oh, sick. Cool. I could do $6,000. So the next day I send him the files and I find out later, it's taken a little while and I'm like, hey man, where it's been a few months, where is he? He called me. He's like, I got to come clean, bro. We've had people our entire history of doing this. When they didn't, they would always say they were going to do it themselves. So we just started saying that. So this way, no one had any bad feelings. I didn't expect you to do it. We're losing money on this. So it's just going to take a little while. He's like, I'm going to honor it because I said it. I'm like, oh, sick. Great. So I got what he was charging people 20, 30,000 at the time for $6,000 because I just did it on my own. But I made that book to be able to say, hey, I did it in 24 hours. It's not a masterpiece. It was just off the top of my head. But then it became like this folk legend where I was like, Anthony wrote a book in 24 hours. And I was just trying to be like, this isn't a masterpiece. I just did it quick.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm sitting here listening to a small part of your whole story, and you're an enigma because you're talking about a dad in prison and doing all these things. What a lot of people would use that excuse to
Sure.
maybe go the other way. You went to the right, they're going to the left. What is
Yep.
inside of you that,
Yeah.
obviously the last name Spark, so you've got that going for you, but
Yeah.
how did you become? What
Yeah.
inside you said, I got to do this? I got the fire.
Yeah. A few things. First off, I legally changed my name to Spark before my kids for that exact
I
reason.
love that.
Yeah. My dad has the same name. He doesn't have a middle name. So I would be confused as a convicted felon. And it just wasn't great for business. My last name originally was DeJohn Tommaso. No one could say it. And then the petty reason, which wasn't why I changed it, it was really like I want this new family lineage and my kids' names are super cool and it's great and all those different things. I didn't want to be confused as a felon. But the petty reason was until I was like 28 when I changed my name, every week, 3 or 4 times a week, I would like have my name and someone be like, oh, must have taken a long time to learn to spell that in kindergarten. I said, I can't stomach anyone saying this to me anymore. There's been like 5,000 times people have said this. But anyway, I have found for most people, when you look at a bell curve distribution, when you come from issues and trauma and different things, usually you are going to find that you will find a percentage of those people at the bottom repeating the pattern, and you're going to find a percentage of those people at the absolute top that overcame it and used it as fuel. So I'm not that much of a rarity because if you look at people that succeed, many of them have that background. It's just an equal proportion of people that repeat the pattern. I decided when I was young, I didn't want to repeat this. I didn't want this life. I had a firsthand look on what the consequences of dealing drugs, the consequences of stealing money, the consequences of carousing and treating women as objects. I had a firsthand purview of what the consequences of these things are. So had I not had that, could I have ended up as a drug dealer? Probably. I could have, and I could have got myself a lot of trouble. The story could have been much different, but I watched the consequences and I said, I don't want this life. I will also say, to my dad's credit, my mom's great. I'm the eldest of 3. My mom came from a lot of trauma, but she had to have done something right because I'm a top earner. My sister and brother-in-law are top earners with a great marriage. My brother he's 30, he makes 500 grand in what he does. So all of my mom, all 3 of us as siblings have functional relationships, make a lot of money, very successful. So, but my dad did do one thing. My younger siblings didn't have a lot of relationship with my dad because he was out of the picture young. I did. And I don't have a relationship with him now because he's just it's toxic for my family. And that's a whole nother story. And sometimes you have to draw boundaries. It's unfortunate. I wish it wasn't like that. But what he did do growing up is he always said, you're better than me. You're not going to do this. You're going to make better choices. So even in the midst of all those problems and all those different things, I was always given an identity that was different, which certainly made a big difference and helped.
Wow. Well, I have to tell you, we are almost out of time, but I am so glad you came on today. You are
Thank you.
inspiring. You're smart. You're funny. You're the whole package. You are the whole package. And it's just been a pleasure meeting you. So I want to thank you for coming on today. Do you have any nuggets? Yours are like way golden. Yours are like 18 karat nuggets. So give us some nuggets today.
Yeah.
Just how to find who you are and excel.
Yeah. Finding who you are. Everyone talks about being who you are, if that's what we're going to go on that. And they act like it's like this beautiful thing, like do what you believe. It is. But you have to know a lot of people are going to be upset. A lot of people aren't going to like it. A lot of people aren't going to support it. If you're going to stop pretending to be somebody you're not, you're going to lose relationships where you pretended to be somebody you weren't. And it's hard. But I think there's nothing more valuable than looking someone in the mirror that you know, love, and respect, regardless of what other people think, where you have the guts to stand by your values and chase your goals and dreams and be the person that you're proud of and do the things that make you feel that you're living the life that you're meant to live. When we talk about success, there's really four main things that we need. We need a guide, a mentor. You need somebody that's going to help coach you, and that could be professionally, it could be personally. That's my passion. That's why I do the coaching. Coaching's an active income. It's a big toll, but I love it. So it fits for me. Yeah, I can make some extra money, but I don't need any extra money at this point. I'm happy to make more money, but it's mainly a labor of love for me. But you got to find a mentor. You got to find someone that can coach you. Second, you have to have resources. You have to have curated resources to study, reading and listening, investing in yourself, skills, YouTube, actual books. I've read about a book a week for probably 10, 20 years of my life. It changes. People are like, oh, you're so smart. Yeah, I have an aptitude for learning. But please don't disregard that I have read about a book a week for my entire adult life when most adults don't read books. That's going to put you in a different place if you do that long term. Third, you need a community of people. Oh, you go, Nicole.
No, I just said I love the reading. I'm an avid reader, and
yes,
the learning from the books is incredible.
It is. It is. And you got to struggle with stuff. Like Albert Camus, one of my favorite philosophers. If you're not reading books that you're like, damn, like, I don't even know what's going on. You're not growing. You're not learning. Like, I'm a smart guy, but Albert Camus, this guy's got to have at least 30, 40 IQ points on me, because he's making references to material in a paragraph where I don't even know the three references that he's trying to tie together. I got to go back to try to read all the other stuff. But if you're not struggling, don't expect to get smarter and don't expect to know stuff. Third, you need a community of people that support the identity that you want, that are forward thinking, that aren't going to pull you down, aren't going to say that you can't. And then number four, you need a vehicle that's going to produce the life you want. I would have loved to be a teacher, but it wasn't going to pay me what I wanted. I think teachers are amazing, but I knew clearly I want to make a lot of money and help people. Teaching can help people not make a lot of money. I wasn't going to go to finance because I can make a lot of money. I was going to help people, but we got to find the vehicle that can actually get us to the place that we want to go and be honest about it. If you're okay making 60, 80 grand a year, and that's wonderful. Just don't expect something out of something that can't give you. That's the key.
Wow. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Well, I want to thank you for being on today.
Glad to be here.
I was sitting here like, I'm so tired. You have the energy to bring people up as well as coach them. So you've not only enlightened me, you've made me feel ready to start the day. So I thank you for that. A great interview. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for being on today.
Oh, thank you so much. If you don't stop recording, please reach out to Nicole. Nicole does a tremendous amount of work, and it's thankless. You're driving along, you're hearing this, you've been listening to Nicole's podcast. It makes a difference. You're like, yeah, that's great. I love that guest. That made a difference. She doesn't hear it unless you tell her, and she invests a lot of time and a lot of money into doing this. So please reach out to Nicole. Please find a channel to let her know if this has impacted you, because it'd be real nice to hear 5 or 10 people, because I'm sure there's hundreds and thousands that have been positively impacted by this. But if Nicole doesn't hear it, she might not keep doing it. So make sure you reach out to her.
Thank you. That is so kind of you to do that. I appreciate you. I've enjoyed you, and thank you for being here today.
Same. Thanks, Nicole. Bye, everybody.